And a very good Monday evening. Welcome into the second edition for the second year of Time Out here on TVNB. In the next 30 minutes, some of the subjects we'll be touching on. The Flames notched their first win of the season. The Red Sox are right back in the hunt of things, and the Dallas Cowboys are hurting after they leave Philadelphia in more ways than one. All that and a whole lot more coming up, so stay right there. And a good Monday evening. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Hope you, your friends, and your family all enjoyed this long holiday weekend. Back to work tomorrow. We won't mention that again. Didn't mean to depress you. And welcome into the second show of the second year of Time Out here on TVNB. Jim Hennessy along with Barry Johnston. Got lots of food this weekend, I take it?
Lots of ham. Mom was generous this year.
Leaving the turkey till Christmas.
Yeah, right. Don't want to get all turkeyed out. It's only a couple of months away. So.
There you go. St. John Flames get their first W last Friday as the Lock Monsters from Lowell roll into town. Good crowd on hand at Harbor Station, and it always gets back to that. You like to concentrate on the wins and losses, but it always gets back to the crowd. You were at the game. Give us your overview of it.
Well, as Gordy Thorne said, it was our largest crowd in almost over a year since they had their home opener last year, so they were quite happy. Gordy and Nick were kind of walking around prancing pretty good there on Friday night,
I bet you.
Which they had every reason to. It was a good crowd, 5,700 plus, and it wasn't really a thrilling game, but nonetheless, St. John did get the W on the board, and that's all that really counts right now. So now they're 1-1-1 on the season, and as we tape here today, they are in Lowell taking on the Lock Monsters on the other half of the home and home series against them.
Exactly, looking to make it 2 in a row against Lowell. And I guess the it being the home opener, and like they say, a big crowd on hand, and you hope that, congratulations goes out to all the Flames fans for coming down to Harbor Station on Friday night, this being the 7th season, and a lot of people have said this is the make or break season. We seem to say that statement after, let's say, the 4th or 5th season. That seems to be the statement we keep saying year after year after year, but when you get off to a good start like that, the team goes out and puts a good win on the board, 4-1. Luongo's in town. That doesn't hurt because of the run he made with the Acadie Bathurst Teton last year. Do you think that we can stay at the 5,000 level, or is that just hoping a little too much?
Well, with the team they have this year, I think there shouldn't be a problem. I think that with more or less 4 tough guys in the lineup, it's going to be our toughest team we've ever seen here. And I asked Rick Bive about that, and he says, well, we want to go into Barnes where we're not going to get pushed around. Last year we got pushed around too much. Little guys like St. Louis, Don McKelly, they got bounced around pretty heavy and pretty hard. And therefore, the injury bug took over, and, the rest is history. But he likes the idea of a tough team. Rick Bive's always liked a tough-going type of hockey. He's back from the era when hockey was rough and tumble.
He played on a couple of tough teams when he was with the Leafs, yeah?
Yeah, so he enjoys watching some of the rough stuff. O'Dewey is one of them. Thompson, Roach, Staples is a big kid back there, 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in that area.
He's huge.
You got Matt Odette back there, who was serving a suspension, did not play in the home opener. Lee Sorkin, another defenseman. They lost a couple of good defensemen before that home opener, and they still pulled the W out with the team they had, and I think that shows a lot what St. John has this year. And any of the fans are kind of doubtful. I think this is one of the best teams, provided Calgary stays healthy. And we mentioned that in the last show. Healthy is a big word, and you don't mention that too much around the St. John dressing room, because when you hear that word, somebody's not healthy, Vibe just puts his head down and starts shaking and wonder who's gone.
Yeah, exactly. Let's slip up to the Parent Club before we get to the highlights from that game last Friday night. Parent Club's off to just a brutal start. They're 0-3. They play tonight as you're watching the show right now. They are in action tonight. Grant Fuhrer, of course, touted as being the savior to get Calgary over that hump and back into the playoffs. You look at this lineup in Calgary, you got to think, Stevie Smith is not a young kid anymore. Grant Fuhrer is not a young kid anymore. They did get some of the integral players that they wanted back into the lineup. Gilna signs a new contract, a 3-year pact, no terms released or anything like that. But you got to wonder what's going on in Calgary. Sutter's shaking his head. He's lost a couple of close games, but Grant Fuhrer has not played up to his potential so far.
Well, I think they're trying to follow suit that Montreal did here last year, I think it was, by bringing Moog in and thinking, well, maybe he's a veteran goaltender. He can help out the younger goaltenders in our system. And I think they were hoping on Fuhrer to do that. But I think it's going to take a while for Fuhrer to get into game shape. And to go and practice, to go and skate, That's nowhere near what a game situation is like. A lot of people think, well, I know he's so far out of shape. Well, yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, he is out of shape.
Exactly.
And golfing all summer, that just doesn't keep you in game shape. And I don't know. I think Stevie Smith, another veteran defenseman, I think they made a big mistake in losing Todd Simpson. I mean,
question.
he was more or less a veteran defenseman for them, too, although he was early 20s, but he's still a veteran defenseman. And Calgary, I think, just give them some time. I think they're going to come around and make a pretty good run of it. I mean, you must have liked it. They got beat by Montreal the other night, so that was a win in your column
well,
there.
it's good to see Montreal finally get a win, but things aren't looking good in Montreal either.
When their top defenseman is a 5'0" bully on, I mean, he looked good in Fredericton last year, but he looks way out of place up there. He's a great offensive.
Saku Koivu can't put the puck in the net. Trevor Linden has just, a couple of assists. He's shown a couple of flashes of his old brilliance, but I mean, nothing serious. I mean, Hackett is playing the best that he can with the defense in front of him, just depleted by injuries, Montreal so far this year. But, like we said, if Calgary has got to get some wins on the board, because if they don't, Sutter and Coetzee are going to want to shake it up, and that means St. John's lineup gets shaken up and everything gets thrown out of whack. Rick Vive's not a happy camper. Brian Sutter's not a happy camper, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. But instead of talking about it, let's take a look at it. You were down at the game Friday night, and you've got the highlight package from St. John Flames' first win on this young AHL season as they took on the Lowell Lock Monsters at Harbor Station.
The St. John Flames kicked off their 99-2000 season last Friday with what is to be expected to be one of their better teams St. John has seen in quite a while. Fan favorite Rocky Thompson appearing in a St. John uniform for the first time since January 1st, 98. He did not fail to entertain the fans by making a head-over-heels entrance. Rocky, unhurt, got up and waved to the crowd, laughing. Roberto Luongo appearing in New Brunswick for the first time since leading his Quebec Major Junior League team, the Acadie Bathurst Titans, to the final and eventually the championship, gets beat in the first period by Nat Domicelli. Home side gets up by a score of 1-0. And we move now to the second period. Well, St. John will go up by a score of 2-0 on a goal by Chris Clark. He jams it in, and his hard work pays off. St. John goes up by a score of 2-0 in the second period. There wasn't much rough stuff in the game, but Frederick Oduya and Martin Letra decide to mix it up a little. Nothing much comes out of this one, and we'll have to call this one a draw. And with Lowell down by 2 goals, Dmitry Nabokov and Jason Krog decide to get together, and Lowell finally gets on the board in the third. On the dump in, Jason Krog rushes in and fires a blast past Jean-Sebastien Ziguer, and Lowell finally gets on the board with a score of 2-1. And with Lowell just finishing off a penalty kill, Chris Clark wastes no time in putting the team ahead by a score of 3-1, and that's pretty well the icing on the cake as St. John takes a 3-1 lead in the third period. Luongo was sharp on the night. As you see here, he's going to make a big glove save on number 3, Eric Charon of the Flames, which kept the Flames from going up by a score of 4-1. Still in the third, with Giroux and Eglin wrestling behind the net, fan favorite Rocky Thompson fires it behind Roberto Luongo, and 5,700 fans go crazy at Harbor Station as Rocky scores his first goal of the year for the Flames. And Luongo stopped 36 of 40 shots, and when asked if he was even a little bit happy with his performance, he said,
I think it was I was playing pretty well until the third goal. It was an unlucky goal. Shot was at the net, and it just caught a stick in the air, and after that I got scored on right away. So in general, I'm not really satisfied with the way I played. I could have, I tried to keep my team in the game, and the score finished up 4-1. So I'm not really totally satisfied with myself.
Rick Vive seemed to take the win in stride, and when asked if he felt good to get that first win of the season, he said,
well, I think it was pretty important. Was it, the end of the world? No, it's a long season, and we're fairly early in this season, but it was good. It was excellent to get that win out of the way, and we were missing a couple of good defensemen in Sorokin, and Odette didn't play, and we just kind of carried over from the weekend where I think guys stuck up for one another. We played awfully hard. We could have got more than 1 point. And, we played well tonight for probably, I'd have to say, 2/3 of the game. And the other third, we weren't all that good, but we pulled it out. Jaguar played excellent.
And as we said earlier in the show, the Flames are in Lowell to take on the Lock Monsters. Unfortunately, we don't have a game result on that as they are playing pretty well as we are taping right now, Jim.
You got it.
And then they're off until Friday. and then they will be hosting the Wilkes-Barre-Stratton Penguins. That's a tongue twister.
Glad you had to say it instead of me, man.
And that is the beginning of a 4-home game stand that they will have at Harbor Station. Then on Saturday night, they will take on the Springfield Falcons. And as you folks remember, they had a wild one in Springfield when the Flames were down there for their season opener against Springfield. So we'll have to see what happens there. And tickets are still available, and we hope to see you down there at the station.
Absolutely. The more the merrier down at Harbor Station. Of course, they had 5,700 for the home opener, and going to be interesting to see how they make it down the stretch. And we'll have the results of that Lowell afternoon contest that they're playing today when we come back and talk to you again next week here on Time Out. Got to take a quick break. We're coming back with more hockey talk and baseball talk, of course. We're headed down the stretch, making it down to the Final Four after this evening's game between the Red Sox and Cleveland. All that and a whole lot more to discuss, so don't go far.
Skaters thinking. The injuries can happen when you least expect it. Sticks and stones can get caught in your wheels. Someone can cut right in front of you when you least expect it, or you can't stop fast enough. That's why I can't stress enough the importance of wearing all your protective gear, regardless of age and ability.
Your knee and elbow pads protect these joints when you fall. They should fit securely so that the pads won't shift on impact. Wrist injuries are very common, so wrist guards can help absorb some of the impact and help avoid fractures, scrapes, and cuts. Eyewear saves your eyes from the sun, the bugs, and any debris as you skate. And a helmet, nothing protects your head better.
Just makes sense to wear all the gear, considering how fast you're going and how out of control you can get.
You can also skate safer by skating on cycling or walking paths, on an asphalt track, or in an organized event.
The only way to skate is to skate safe.
So until next time, keep fit and have fun.
Body break.
And welcome back into the second half of Time Out here on TVNB. Hope you and your family are enjoying this holiday Thanksgiving Monday. Jim Hennessy and Barry Johnston. We're going to stay on the page of hockey just for a second because it was one of the most vicious hits I've seen since Suter cross-checked Paul Correa in the head. And it wasn't really a check. It was more of just the way he fell. Mike Modano last Saturday fell into the boards head first, twisted his neck up pretty bad. It didn't look like a bad check, but it just looked like he kind of lifted him and pulled him that way. We're talking about the Anaheim Mighty Ducks defenseman. He received 10 games from Colin Campbell. A lot of people are saying that's simply not enough. Somebody's going to get killed. And when you first saw the clip, it certainly looked like Modano, the way he hit the boards. I thought he was crippled. I thought this guy's never going to walk again, let alone play hockey. He got 10 games. Modano's still on the shelf. Modano's gone on record by saying respect for players and their welfare is the key to resolving this issue. Now, Modano was ready to quit, hang up the blades, and say, this is just getting crazy. We saw Mario Lemieux, that being one of the reasons why he didn't want to play hockey anymore. Wayne Gretzky, of course, winding down his career, was always saying the pulling, the grabbing, just a total lack of respect for each other out there has got to come to an end. What's this going to take? And did he get enough games? Is 10 games enough?
Well, obviously 10 games has set a precedent. I mean, normally they got a slap on the wrist in the way of 3 games and maybe a $5,000 fine. 10 games is pretty steep. They should have fined him 10 games without pay. Then it would really hit home. 10 games and he's still going to get paid? That's a paid vacation in my books. But Modano, he was right on the money. Respect, players these days are bigger, much stronger. I mean, the average height now in the National Hockey League is about 6 foot anyway.
Gotta be, yeah.
And around 210, 15 pounds. So that's some pretty big boys. You get those two forces hitting against you. I'm not going to talk physics here because I'm no good at it, but those two forces I know is like a freight train on a crash course, and they're going to hurt. And like you say, Lemieux, he just got sick and tired of the cheap shots, and Modano's in the same boat. I mean, you know, he's one of the elite players, you know, and he doesn't want to get hurt out there. He doesn't want to. He didn't want to, you know, go around in a wheelchair the rest of his life and you know, say, gee, you know, I had a great career, but somebody wiped me out, and that's it. So I think Colin Campbell is starting to set a precedent. I mean, like Marchand, how he always, you know, sticks the knee out on people and whatnot. I think those are soon going to come to an end. And Calgary took a big step. When you talk about goons and that type of hitting in the league, they're not going with any this year. They're not going with a tough guy this year.
Yeah.
They're going to try and play basically on an elite type of team. And it seems like the league has taken a step forward towards that. They're not going to go with this fighting all the time. And there's not near the fighting as there used to be in the league.
Well, I think it helps the league, too, with Gretzky standing on the sideline saying that we must promote the skills more than getting out there and dropping the gloves and be so quick to throw a punch or to throw a jab or to throw a check at somebody. That could be a career-ending as well as a life-shattering hit because we've seen junior players over the past couple of years take some bad hits into the boards, and you know, now they're never going to walk again for the rest of their lives. So it gets back, I think one of the arguments is, as long as Modano's on the shelf, this guy should be out too. Do you agree with that rule? I mean, is that something that the league should look at? Like when Correa got nailed by Suter, like literally across the forehead with that vicious cross-check, Suter got 4 games, and that was pathetic. So you got to remember Brian Burke was still at the helm calling the shots and how many games you got at that point, so we can't lay that one on Colin Campbell. But should that be the rule? As long as that player's out that you injured, that's as long as you sit on the shelf without pay.
Well, there's two sides to that, and then when you and I were on the radio doing the locker room, I brought that up that he should sit, whoever the injury should sit out as long as the injured. And I think the fellow who does the injuring should have to pay the other guy's salary. It shouldn't have to come out of the team's pocket because he got hurt.
I like that idea.
Why shouldn't that guy pay his salary?
Yeah.
Granted, if he's if he's just new in the league and he's only getting maybe $385,000 or $475,000, well, I'm sorry, you better go out and sell hot dogs in the stands while you're suspended because. But I believe that an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I think that he should sit out for as long as that player is out. Now, granted, if a player it's not really a life-threatening injury, but one that's going to put him out for the rest of his career, you know, put some games in there, extenuating games where he's going to have to sit out. But I like the idea personally, and I think he should have to pay his salary, maybe medical expenses, and then they'll think twice about knocking some of these guys into the boards from behind.
Never thought about that point. I like that point a lot. Let's go over to the gridiron, and Sunday afternoon it was the Dallas Cowboys 3-0 heading into the vet to take on the Eagles, who were 0-4, still looking for their first win. Great defense. Eagles are right up there, top ranked in the top 5 defensively. Offensively, and it's a different story. They're sitting at the bottom of the basement. First half, Michael Irvin gets a pass from Troy Aikman. Takes the pass, lands awkwardly on his neck, twists his neck as well. Swollen disc. He's going to be able to walk, but it's questionable as when he will be back in the Cowboys lineup. Laying on the field, we saw the highlights, and the fans at the vet were cheering that Michael Irvin was laying there. He wasn't moving a lot. His head was moving a little bit, but his legs, said for a while he couldn't feel anything in his legs or his arms or anything like that. So the fans at the vet were cheering. Following the game, Dallas loses the game. Okay, so they fall to 3-1. Teammates visibly upset about Michael Irvin getting carried off the field. Fans are cheering. Deion Sanders and the entire team is outraged. They said this is totally disgusting for those fans to cheer that this guy, you know, was seriously injured, might never walk again, and never play the game again. Gets back to the old adage, the fans pay for the tickets, they get to go to the game, but how far can they go while sitting in the stands?
Well, that's a little bit too far, I think. I think what a lot of the fans are probably thinking in Minnesota was, what goes around comes around, and Irvin's he hasn't been the nicest boy in the league as of the last couple of years. I mean, he's been in his fair share of trouble. But when a guy's laying on the field, of course in the stands, you know, everybody's having a cold one, and you know, emotions are getting going there, and you figure, well, there's one of their star guys, he's gone for the, you know, I don't think they knew the severity of how bad he was hurt. I mean, we've seen guys get carried off 2 or 3 plays later that, you know, they're out in the field, you know, and tackling and catching a pass. But I think if they knew the severity, which, you know, you can't broadcast what the injury is to the stadium every time a guy gets hurt, but I think it was one of those things where they spoke before they thought, and like I say, there's always some cold beverages going around there, and I think that's what was going on. But Dion may have been in the right spot or in his right place to say something and out to the media, and I think maybe the people of Minnesota who were maybe cheering the level-headed ones anyway will say, well, gee, maybe I shouldn't have been doing that. But unfortunately for Irwin, I feel sorry for him. Maybe that may change his mind for his career. Maybe he may say, that's enough, you know, that's a pretty close call. And swelling in a disc area, you will get some numbness down there because the nerves and whatnot just don't function with that swelling around there. And hopefully he's going to be all right. He is, you know, one of the star players in the league. So, but I think Minnesota went a little too far on that.
And with this happening as well in Philadelphia with the AstroTurf, this brings back another argument to say, got to get rid of the turf, got to bring the natural grass back in. For injury reason, they say that the vet is the worst. It's just like playing on this concrete that's down on the floor here in the studio, plus longevity of the players. They say with the natural grass, they'd be able to play maybe 2, 3, 4 years longer than they are right now before they retire.
Well, I walked on the AstroTurf at Skydome, and I think there's more cushion to that than the old terra firma down there personally, but I don't know. I think maybe there may be a little more give to the ground. I've never played football, so I can't really say. I mean, I know ice is pretty hard when you get nailed. So.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, that's the only thing I can compare it to. But I know a frozen field in you know, you get the Lambeau Field and that ground gets a little hard.
Especially
that's just
November,
like the
December.
cement.
Yeah.
But if you were on AstroTurf, I think it'd be a little softer to land on. So that's a question for the big fellas. But something I like to bring up while we're still on football is the Miami game, Miami and Indianapolis game. Last year, a lot of people were really on the bandwagon saying we got to get some younger referees, ones that can keep up with the play, ones with the eyesight might be a little bit better. Never mind the replays, just get the young ones in there that can see these plays, because the NFL referees are getting up there in age. I mean, you know, that's no big secret.
Sure.
But a lot of close calls in that game. I think Indianapolis should have come out of that with a win by, you know, probably by 10 points at least anyway. I don't think that Miami should have won that, but it's a questionable call, but they can still go to the replay. So
yeah, exactly.
So I think I've been listening to an all-talk radio in Boston, and they sure get on the bandwagon at night whenever there's a football game, and they harp and harp about the overweight, overaged referees in the NFL.
Well, a lot of people said that bringing back video replay as well was going to be good, and even with the video replay, you've seen many questionable calls now. They take a timeout away from you if the call is not in your favor and it is reversed and kept the same as the referee and the linesman call. So it's a test, and a lot of people like Mike Holmgren has gone on record saying it's the best thing that the league's done in a few years since they had a video replay 3 or 4 years ago. So, you know, it's just one of those tests where we're going to have to sit back and wait. You flip over to baseball right now, and we've got a terrific hunt coming down the stretch. Cleveland Indians, they won the first 2 at the Jake last week. Everybody thought, okay, Boston gone, 3 straight, see you later. Come back home Saturday to Fenway. The fans, they fill Fenway, of course, as always, thinking, well, this is going to be the last time we get to see them for 99. They come out, they win Game 3. They come out last night and absolutely humiliate Cleveland, 23-7. John Valentin continues to be the hot bat for the Boston Red Sox. Going to the Jake tonight. Pedro Martinez is not going to get the start unless something happens here in the next 90 minutes before we get to game time in Cleveland. Pedro's back, shoulder still bothering him a little bit. Brett Saberhagen gets the start for Boston. He got hammered in Game 2. He's got an ERA going into this game. You're going to love this. Over 20. Okay? So he's 0-1 in the playoffs so far this year, but Jimmy Williams said Saberhagen had a bad outing. Most pitchers do on any given night. Saberhagen's the man they've got to go with because he's come up in the rotation. They feel he's the man to win this game. Charles Nagy, who pitched extremely well in Game 2 for the Indians, goes for the Tribe tonight at the Jake. Who wins this thing and who moves on? And I mean, you know, both of them got to be sitting there going, geez, you know, we're playing our guts out here in a 5-game series, and then we got to move on. Things don't get easier. Got to play New York.
Well, I think Jimmy Williams hit it right on the nail, right on the head when he said Saberhagen had a bad game, and that's the time to have the bad game, not in Game 5.
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
have your bad game in Game 5.
Exactly.
Game 2, you can make up the ground. But I think that was just one of his bad games, and I picked Boston for that one. I think that's a no-brainer there. For some reason, I think they're just going to keep Pedro on the shelf, get him healed up, because they're looking into the future, saying, well, the next round we're going to want him.
Oh, you'd love to have Pedro for Game 1.
Yeah, we're going to want him
Yankees.
for sure.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's Boston, and the whole Major League playoffs right now has been quite exciting to watch. And Brad, I'm sorry, but as you already know, your Houston just didn't quite make it as we were watching Friday night. But
exactly.
Unfortunately, I thought that was a pretty good series too, Houston and.
Yeah. Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, I just thought Houston had the tools finally this year. They had like 3 20-game winners in their lineup. Had some good power hitting. Ken Caminiti was in the lineup for them. And he had a great series, 3 games. And, I mean, he hit 3 home runs. He played extremely good baseball. But, you know, they just fall a buck short. Question is now, can anybody beat the Yankees? They sweep Texas, totally shut them down once again. I think this is like the 3rd out of 4 years that they've done this. Won the first 2 games in the Bronx, gone into the ballpark in Arlington, and totally shut them down and dominated them. Darryl Strawberry hitting the ball well. We know all the problems he's come back from. Can the Yankees keep up this momentum? Joe Torre said, hey, let the Indians and the Red Sox play each other and beat each other into the ground and play 5 games. Then you got to come to the Bronx and play us. We get a couple of days rest. Pitching, the starting pitching for the Yankees is just phenomenal. Roger Clemens, David Cohn, you know, you look down the lineup, Andy Pettit, El Duque's in there. Can anybody beat the Yankees, or is this just a foregone conclusion? Everybody else is going through the motions in New York. There you go.
Well, I think it's basically the same as last year's team. Really, the only difference is that you have Wells in Toronto instead of Clemens, and you got Clemens in Boston, and Wells is in Toronto. There's really not much change there. Clemens is, I find, just about as equal as a pitcher, and there's a lot of people going to jump down my throat whenever they see me in public on this one, but I think it was basically an even trade there. It's just that Clemens wanted to go to a contender, and Wells, well, I guess he's just the odd man out, unfortunately for him, but Yankees, no. I think they're a house on fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know one thing, I'm getting sick and tired of seeing Atlanta going to the postseason. That's just getting ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's just, that's the senses of a lot of people. It's just they're getting tired of seeing Atlanta. We like to see some other teams in there, but I think to see a Yankee Atlanta final would be quite a thing.
Well, Atlanta's definitely been the team of the 90s, just not able to bring the whole trophy home every year as we've seen over the past couple of years, but they played extremely well in the 90s, and, you know, full credit's got to go to them. Be interesting to see how the Mets do against them as well. Totally out of time. 30 minutes flies by when you're having fun. Thanks,
I did most of the talking on this one, so I know you worked all morning, early morning hours, so I did all the talking on that one.
Well,
so.
that's all right. They just prop me up with a stick back here and try to keep me awake. We've had a good time. Thank you very much. We hope you and your family and have had a great holiday weekend, and good luck heading back to work tomorrow after that 3-day long weekend. Have yourself a great week, and we'll talk to you again next Monday at 7 o'clock right here on Time Out here on TVNB.